Good afternoon. It's Rian Kutsia from Fortis Proactive Defense Solutions in Pretoria. And today I have the honor of speaking to Aziza Scheidereiter from CHS Guns in Somerset West in the beautiful Western Cape. Aziza, welcome. Thank you for giving us some of your time. We will be talking today about choosing the correct gun for yourself, ladies, for specifically defensive purposes. Aziza, can you maybe just by way of introduction, tell us a little bit about your background in firearms?
Sure thing. Thanks for having me, Rian. It's lucky to see you again. So I was pretty much born into the industry. My grandfather started the company in 1974. Wow. He had a massive passion for black powder guns, and he was an avid collector. And my dad ended up taking it over from him and started a company or a shop that many of the Cape Townians will still remember, called Dad's Toys. And Dad's Toys started off in Tiger Valley with a shooting range, and it was back then, the shop for anything tactical and gadgety. He had an absolute fascination for it. I think my dad started it more for himself to get all the goodies than as a business. And from there it grew, and he moved it to one of the bigger malls, and eventually ended up selling. But part of the business remained on our little small holding in Somerset West. So the gun shop portion stayed with us. And over the years, it became dormant for a little while, and I started back into it purely for the reason of getting rid of some of the collectible items and, shutting it down because it wasn't doing anything. And as I started, our club members started asking me for items, and I got in touch with the Glock importers, and from there somehow it grew and spiraled out of control into what I have now. So I went completely off the beaten track, away from my qualification, and ended up restarting a gun shop and being the third generation to run it.
Wow, that is something. And I know you moved premises not too long ago. Whereabouts in Somerset West? Because I visited you at the old premises still, but whereabouts in Somerset West are you now?
So we are now situated in the Somerset West Business Park, just off the N2. Much bigger space, much nicer space. We now have windows. You'll remember our previous place was a bit of a bunker.
Yes.
We now have light and love in a gun shop.
Okay, well, that helps.
It does. It's a whole lot less depressing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're into firearms so much that I don't know if you can get depressed in that shop, truth be told. Remember, I've seen it. Aziza, let's get cracking. Tell me, what would you say, or in your experience, are some of the most common concerns that women have when choosing a firearm for self-defense?
So the main concern is whether or not they'll actually carry it. So often what I see happening is that you have a spouse or a partner who is into firearms and carries his gun, and then men tend to have the habit of going, well, you need to carry one too. And you just kind of get pushed into this whole world, and not everybody has grown up in it. And like with starting anything new, it's intimidating. So I think one of the hurdles is usually that because it's something new and it's something that not that many women are exposed to, it becomes intimidating, and they become apprehensive about the process. Add to that, I'm going to be terribly sexist now, but men tend to be a little less patient than women. So
that's not sexist, that's just truth.
It's true. So I think one of the concerns there is that they end up almost being forced into something, and then without much guidance end up with a purchase that might not necessarily suit their lifestyle or their needs.
Okay. Okay.
So
Well, and of course, from
then
there
you,
it will just go wrong.
yes, and then you add to the equation a sensitive subject. I mean, if you've got kids or you're planning on having kids, it's a big
Mm,
factor for a lot of people that they're concerned about having a gun in the house, which is a very valid concern. It's something that we all need to talk about and address very strictly. But
mm,
it becomes, or the gun gets associated with violence and accidents, and it just has bad connotations for people. And then people just go, okay, no, I don't want a gun in the house, which is what I find often is one of the big problems when it comes to chatting to the ladies. Once they make the switch of
mm,
understanding that the gun is actually just a tool, then
mm,
it becomes a whole lot easier to have that discussion. And the fact that you would introduce your children to firearms from a young age and you'd introduce good
mm.
habits and safety measures from the beginning. And I find that the quicker you introduce the kids to this factor that's in your house, the less curiosity they have around it. So when you approach
Okay.
it from that side and people have more understanding, I find that the subject gets a whole lot easier to talk about.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Yes. I think that's a very sensible approach. Now, there's a persistent common argument. Um, I mean, I've heard it myself so many times over the years that a smaller gun is just better for a woman. Is there any truth to this? And what should women consider instead then?
I'm going to be controversial and say yes and no.
Yeah.
So, on the one hand, my dad had an excellent saying. He used to
Uh,
say, the smaller the woman, the bigger the gun.
okay.
So, the smaller you are and the less likely you are to physically defend yourself, the bigger your gun needs to be. But on the other side of that, you've also got the fact that you have to carry this firearm on you. So, whilst
Yes.
I'm not saying that women need to carry smaller guns, my opinion is more that, well, anyone, not just ladies, anybody choosing
Mm.
a firearm needs to purchase the firearm that they are willing to carry. So if you
Yeah.
are able to conceal a 19 and you're happy to carry that, then by all means buy the 19, Glock 19 now,
Mm.
above a smaller gun. But if your
Okay.
lifestyle and your wardrobe doesn't allow for that, and it's going to mean that you're going to end up putting the firearm in the safe and not carry it, then I would suggest do go for a smaller firearm. Not
Mm-hmm.
because it's easier to handle, contrary to popular belief. The smaller the gun, the more difficult it is to handle. You'll have more
Yep.
recoil, you've got less purchase on your grip, but it's a self-defense firearm. It's meant to be there in the moment. You're not going to be sharpshooting with it.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Let's get on to another old favorite, revolvers, the good old 38 snubby thing. The revolvers. Oh, there we go.
This one,
There we go. That's a nice one, actually, truth be told.
you
Uh,
can't have it.
I
It's mine.
I do like revolvers. I must confess, I've always liked revolvers. I do have a soft spot for them. So they're often recommended for women specifically because they are simpler. Is it a good choice, or do you think a semi-auto pistol is a better option, and why?
You see, Rian, we get very confused. Our brains are very small. We can't handle all that gun. I'm kidding.
Mm.
We the
I
revolvers
I
used to.
I did not say that. She did.
I have to get a little sarcastic. It's in my nature. Um, the snubby used to be the number one recommended firearm besides the baby Browning, which by the way is a terrible idea, and a Walter PPK. It's like those three were just the go-to for women back in the day. And
Yeah,
this chunk of metal was put in your handbag, preferably, or in a moon bag, because it's heavy and it's really hard to conceal.
yeah.
And I say that with the disclaimer of I am an absolute revolver fan. I own some revolvers, and my favorite gun to shoot on the range is actually a revolver.
Mhm.
Yes, it is easier to use in some aspects, but the pitfalls are a lot. So firstly, you're limited to usually about 5 or 6 rounds, depending on the model. If you run out of ammunition, you then have to reload that. Reloading a revolver is not as quick and easy as popping a magazine into a semi-auto pistol. You're also sitting with a really thick gun to conceal.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
if I can do a comparison, and all my guns are unloaded, just for the record. This is a little Glock 42 in 9mm short, and this is a revolver.
Quite a difference.
There's a whole lot more to conceal on that revolver. Add to that it is super, super heavy. You're going to end up with leaning towards one side eventually on this thing. And ammo in 38 Special is not always easy to come by. It's also a whole lot more expensive than your 9mm rounds. So
Mhm.
if it's something that you're going to practice with and you're going to use and you're going to carry on you, preferably I would suggest a caliber that you can actually get a hold of easily. So yes, it is mechanically easier perhaps to operate, but it's outdated. Parts have become a problem for these. Repairs are an issue. It's heavy, it's
Okay.
bulky. It also kicks like a mule. So
Yes.
potentially not the best thing for self-defense anymore.
So it's probably time to move on from
It's been time to move on for a little while. So great as a little backup gun, awesome for some range time, but then preferably something that isn't 2 inches. So you
it.
have a whole lot less recoil. Then they are a lovely firearm to shoot, but I wouldn't recommend it as a self-defense first option.
Okay. I think that answers the question. Now, I've seen this happen. Some women struggle with racking the slide of a pistol, a semi-auto pistol. Not all of them, but some of them. Is this something that training can sort out? And are there techniques or firearm choices even that will help?
So definitely. I find that technique 9 out of 10 times solves that problem. But keep in mind, we have had clients walk into the shop that have got either gout or carpal tunnel syndrome, or they've had an operation in the past, or some form of weakness in their wrist or in their hands. And
Yep.
then there are instances where potentially a semi-auto pistol with a slide is not going to be the most ideal choice. I have got 1 or 2 clients, for instance, with missing limbs. So
Okay.
if you're missing a finger or two, it adds complication depending on which hand you're missing a finger on. So there are, instances where we can exclude it, but 9 out of 10 times, if you're teaching the correct technique and you're getting over the mindset as well, because often I find if someone doesn't get it right the first time, they block it themselves. They just decide in their mind they can't do it. And it's like with anything, if you go to gym and you decide you can't do a pull-up, even though you have the strength, you get in your own mind and you don't do it. So similar concept. And I find that if you adjust the technique slightly and you show people that, yes, the slide does indeed go back, mentally they then adjust, and then they can go on to different techniques that might be a little faster or more appropriate for certain styles of sport or whatever it may be. But I feel
Okay.
you need the success first to get to that point.
Yes. Yes.
So just for demonstration purposes, here we go. Let's see. And again, my gun is unloaded. You've got a Glock 48. So you would have seen I still have the habit of having my gun close to my body. So anything here, this is your core. So you're going to have a whole lot more strength in your core than you are over there. Over
Okay.
here, you're pulling with your left hand. it's difficult to demonstrate on the video now, but you're pulling with your left hand and it requires a whole lot more strength because you're using your arm. Where similar to boxing, when you're boxing, you're not really using the strength in your arm, it's the motion. So you're using your hips and you're swinging your whole body weight into a punch. Same story goes for your core with racking your slide. So my advice is usually that you grip your slide over the top here with your left hand or your weak hand. And instead of pulling with your weak hand, you're actually pushing with your right hand, which would be your strong hand. So you're pushing against the slide and your left hand is actually only holding the gun in place. So obviously you're making sure it's in a safe direction downrange. So you'd have to, on the range, twist your body to make sure that your gun is pointing in the correct direction. But that gives you a whole lot more strength here than that would over there. The other thing is as well is if you've got a jam of some sorts and you need a little bit of extra push to clear your gun, over here you can actually punch the gun and get it out of battery to open the slide up again. So this technique here, whole lot better than anything else.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. Even for guys, I think that's not a bad technique to understand.
Even for guys, for anybody. I mean, it's
on that point. I still wanted to ask you at CHS Guns and Ammunition, you do the standard training required in order for people to obtain a firearm license as well.
So we don't, but we have an in-house service provider. So Roger Cedras runs the proficiency training.
Yes.
Absolutely lovely guy. Him and I train a lot together as well. And he comes highly recommended. So he's in the same building as us. And he does all the training for us in-house and then has his own clients as well.
I remember I met him when I was there, when I came for a cop that day, a couple of years ago. Roger, he was in the shop. Last question, and then we're going to end part one of this video with this one. What are the most important factors that women ought to consider when choosing a handgun for self-defense?
So, like we discussed at the beginning of the interview, make sure that you choose something that you're actually going to carry. Take the time to make the decision for you. I know I might be speaking out of turn, but a lot of shops that you walk into, they're going to sell you what they have on the shelf. So visit a couple of shops, check out different options. Don't fall into the mistake of choosing something that fits nicely in your hand. It's probably one of the worst pieces of advice people could offer. My Glock 20, which is a 10 mil, fits beautifully in my hand. Am I going to carry it? Probably not. I have, but probably not. Same with any of the bigger guns. A bigger gun is naturally going to sit better in your hand. It's going to feel more comfortable. It's going to shoot nicer because it feels more comfortable. But like I said at the beginning, it doesn't help you have a massive firearm and you're not actually able to carry it. So something that you're able to carry. Then choose a caliber that makes sense. 9mm Parabellum is probably the most widely advised caliber. It's readily available. You get decent defensive ammo for it. You're always going to be able to walk into any gun shop and buy 9mm Parabellum. 9mm short, like this little jobby here. I love this gun. This little gun is my little weekend gun if I need to dress a little more formally, and it fits really nicely. It's easy to hide, easy to conceal, but that's usually when I have someone next to me that has a bigger gun available. So while the 9 short firearms tend to be a lot smaller and easier to conceal, the caliber itself is nowhere near as capable as your 9mm Parabellum. So that's definitely. Then consider your budget. So don't overspend on your firearm and then have nothing left to purchase ammunition or to get adequate training. So prioritize your training and your ammunition and your safe as well as your firearm, because it's a combo deal. It doesn't help you buy a very expensive firearm and then you can never shoot it because you've spent your budget on the gun. So find a gun that fits within your budget, but find a firearm that you can actually get spares for. Look at the popular brands that are being brought into the country. The gun shop that you're buying from would be a good clue. So if you're looking at a firearm there, ask them what spares do they have available for that specific firearm. If they don't have any spares available and they're not able to really give you pricing on new spares, that might be a little bit of a red flag. So I'm not going to mention brands specifically on here because I'm probably biased, but take a look at your popular brands that you can get spares for. Also, brands that have been known to continue spares for older models. So even though spares might be available for you, that firearm at present, will they still be available in 5 to 10 years' time? So some of the brands that have importers that have been doing this for many, many years in our country can still service guns that have been discontinued. And that makes a big difference because when that's your self-defense gun and you've licensed that and that's on your name and you don't intend on getting another firearm and you're stuck without parts or something breaks, then you're either in for a new firearm and a new waiting period on a new firearm, or you're sitting with a white elephant. So that's a very, very important factor to consider.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna end the first part of this two-part video here for the viewers. Two things. If you've watched this far and you enjoy the content, please remember to subscribe so we can grow the channel. Aziza, thank you, and we will continue with part 2 shortly. And for the viewers, again, the videos will be very clearly marked part 1 and part 2 so that you know what the sequencing. Thank you so much. Talk again soon.
You're welcome. Bye.